Five o'clock hours here. You heard it. Orleans, we're watching hockey. All the Boyd properties. Official home of Lotus Broadcasting during the night's playoff run. The run continues. Puck drop in a little over an hour over at the Fortress. We got Adam Candy here. It's Cofield. Ari is back in our Findlay Toyota studios.
Battleborn Injury Lawyers presents The Big Five at 5. Number 5.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
Rolling live video right now. Follow us up on Twitter with the video, on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. It's a fun watch, and Adam Candy looks very good today. Just put a hat on, enjoying that. Ari, we'll see. We'll see what sort of energy he brings to this 5 o'clock hour. Man, the energy around Rob Manfred ain't good right now. Candy, I don't know what the hell happened with the way they handled this sticky stuff with the pitchers, but it seems like another case where Manfred is just making decisions on the fly or was trying to cover something up and now got called on the carpet. So they're going to start enforcing something. It sounds like penalties with no teeth. If you still get paid as a pitcher, if you're caught, you get a 10-game suspension, but you still get paid. And now Tyler Glasnow, one of the real good young pitchers in baseball, is hurt, and he's pointing at Manfred going, hey, you guys screwed me over.
And even if Tyler Glasnow isn't 100% right about what the effect of having to change things was on him, he is absolutely 100% right on the fact that you don't change the rules midstream like this. You don't ask pitchers to figure it out midstream. This is not a new problem. This is not something you just discovered. What you only just discovered was a Sports Illustrated article the better part of a month ago that called you out on the fact that you've been ignoring this problem that's been in plain sight for multiple decades in baseball. But now here we go. 10-game suspensions, and I think the real teeth of those suspensions is that the team can't replace that player on the roster. So essentially, you're leaving your team shorthanded for that 10 days that you would be suspended if you're caught using the illegal substances. But if you're Tyler Glasnow and you have a breakout season, really, it's him and Garrett Cole and maybe Carlos Rodon at the top of the list in the American League this year. And now you have a partially torn UCL. Same thing that Masahiro Tanaka dealt with for years, the sort of thing that could blow up at any time and force him to miss a year and a half with Tommy John surgery just when it seemed like his career was really ready to take off as the ace of a team leading the American League East. And Tyler Glasnow called out Rod Manfred exactly the way he should and said, this is ridiculous. And he believes that his injury was caused by the change in being able to use the sticky substances. Is he right or wrong? Go ahead and try to prove it. Go ahead and try to prove anything in terms of what this means to a player's health. The point of the matter is it's in their heads. And if a pitcher who knows his mechanics better than anybody else, right? Pitchers are more in tune with their body when it comes to the biomechanics of how they throw the ball in 2021 than they ever have been before. If you ask them to change something when they haven't had the opportunity to plot it out, to work with the technology, to figure out how to change everything about how they throw the ball, then something in their head might be changing how they throw the ball. That's what Tyler Glasnow has to fall back on, and that's why it's ridiculous that Manfred's doing this in the middle of the year.
Number 4.
We'll get you updated in a couple minutes on the Montreal Canadiens and their myriad of injuries and who will be available and who won't tonight. Now, speaking of a lack of availability, man, the NBA is in the soup. Such news this morning. First of all, Chris Paul out indefinitely, placed by the NBA into health and safety protocol hell. What is going on here? Does he have COVID? Was he exposed? Does any of it matter if he's exposed? If he's already fully vaccinated, according to Jalen Rose, saying that Chris Paul is fully vaccinated. What's the deal?
The NBA changed its protocols back in March. As the vaccines were getting more and more widely distributed, essentially the NBA said, look, it's not an automatic 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is, for having to wait until the symptoms go away. Essentially, if you're vaccinated, they accounted for the fact that if you test negative a couple times in 24 hours, you can come back. So we don't know at this point. We don't know if Chris Paul tested negative. We know that the NBA's protocol still says that if you test positive, that you have to be put into the protocol, and then you can test your way out of it if you're vaccinated. But we're all going to jump to the conclusion, right? And we saw this already on Twitter with people commenting on Shams and whoever else broke the news of Chris Paul being out, saying, well, he should have gotten vaccinated. We don't know whether he did or not, so stop. But the Phoenix Suns, of course, they have a little bit of reprieve here, right, Steve? Like, they get a little bit of break because we know that they have to wait for that Clippers-Jazz series to go at least 6 games. And, of course, here we are at the Clippers and Jazz having to deal with Kawhi Leonard being out there.
Number 3.
That is big news today. Kawhi Leonard, as if Chris Paul wasn't a big enough blow to the NBA. Kawhi Leonard, if you watched the last game, came down awkwardly on his knee. After the game, it was interesting. Rebecca Harlow, the sideline reporter, did the whole interview and then tried to ask Kawhi about his injury, if it would be a problem moving forward. He answered curtly and then stormed off. Apparently, it's a problem. And maybe he knew that at that moment and was just kind of pissed about the whole situation. Knee sprain. Some are saying, hey, it could be a tear of the ACL. This is unreal. The bad luck with the injuries continues with some of the biggest stars around the NBA.
Or is it bad luck? And if we're going to talk about Tyler Glass now and the partially torn UCL, same thing, right? Sprained UCL, sprained ACL for Kawhi Leonard. So we know that there is a tear. We don't know if it's a complete tear. But in the end, we're left with the same situation here in the NBA. Whether it was Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell or Joel Embiid or Bradley Beal or Russell Westbrook or LeBron James or Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard, or on and on and on we go. And we didn't even get to James Harden and Kyrie Irving in that list. So LeBron James today called it all out and said, hey, I told you all this was going to happen. I told you I'll play in a compressed season was going to lead to all of these injuries. And you know why I know? Because I'm LeBron and I take care of my body. And guess what? He fell into it too.
Yep. Yeah, he tweeted earlier, they all didn't want to listen to me at the start of the season. LeBron said, I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of the players, which ultimately is the, in caps, product and benefit of our game. I'm sure this will be greeted with, shut up, LeBron, you're a pansy, and the rest of the players are pansies.
I mean, they'll be greeted with, shut up, LeBron, you're not in the playoffs anymore. Well, yeah, you're not in the playoffs because Anthony Davis got hurt, LeBron James got hurt, and here we are. I mean, we're kind of at the point, Cofield, where it just feels like at some point they're going to find what's the healthy team left? The Hawks. He's going to award. Give the Hawks a championship.
I was talking about playing the lottery ticket for on the title odds board. When I was looking earlier to roll the dice on the Kawhi injury, it's probably a bad bet, but they were 9-1 to win the title. Notice that the Hawks, I think, we're at 50-1. I mean, is it? For a couple of seconds, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is pretty wide open, especially with all the injuries, and now you got this COVID mess with CP3.
Joel Embiid went 0 for 12 in the second half of Game 4, and that series is tied at 2. And the Nets, I mean, Harden was a shell of himself. Kyrie probably is coming back. Yeah, I'm going to favor Kevin Durant by himself against Trae Young by himself, but is it impossible for the Hawks to win their way through? No, not at all. And who knows what's going to be left over on the other side, because Mike Conley's hurt and Chris Paul's out and Kawhi Leonard is hurt, and we have no idea who's going to be available for any team right now, pretty much except the Hawks.
Number 2.
Bucks last night looked super comfortable, playing pretty good basketball, up 16-17, although the TNT crew led by Charles Barkley was like, this is even a little too close for the way the Nets are playing. The Bucks should be up a lot bigger, and then the Bucks fell apart in the second half. Their narrative here for you is what? The Bucks blew it, or they went up against a guy who is the best offensive player in the game, and he just had one of those nights. Kevin Durant with 49 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists.
I'm going to be the little girl from the old taco commercial and say, why not both? Because it really is a story of both of those things. If the Hawks do what they're supposed to do, if they keep putting the basketball into the basket, then Kevin Durant can score 59 points and it doesn't matter, because the offense fell to shreds for the Milwaukee Bucks. You had Robin Lopez driving and putting up floaters to Did I call him Robin Lopez? Did I do it again? If the day I figure out the Lopez brothers will be a cold day in hell. But you had Lopez driving in, putting up floaters. You had Giannis dropping passes. You had Middleton shooting the ball on turnarounds. You had fadeaway jumpers against James Harden on defense, and then Giannis can't make a free throw. So if they take care of what they have to at the offensive end of the floor, then Kevin Durant doesn't matter. He has a great performance, but we're not talking about the Bucks collapsing again.
Number 1.
All right, the big game's on tap. About 55 minutes away from puck drop. I think a lot of us, including some of us in the media, are looking at the Canadians like, not much of a matchup here. But you gave us a couple of reasons that the Golden Knights better be on point tonight, because 1-1 in this series ain't a good thing when you're heading to the unknown, and this is real travel now, and it's going to be bubble travel once you get to Montreal.
That's the thing, Steve. I'm not talking about any of the particular things that the Golden Knights might have to go through as, oh no, will they be able to handle going back into a bubble in Canada? Well, yeah, they probably will, but you're now starting to introduce the variables, right? You're now starting to talk about, well, what happens if it is 1-1 and they go up there and now there are 4,500 fans in Montreal and they get into a tough environment and Carey Price gets in their heads and here we go again, right? Then we're talking about the Golden Knights of old where they play great hockey and yet they're not getting the results. The other thing I would say is that what we've talked about with Montreal prior to the series, they had won 7 straight games. They had been one of the best puck possession teams in the league all year long. They were a team that played a lot like the Golden Knights in the playoffs. That was Canadiens in the regular season. A lot of great numbers that weren't turning into wins. Well, Carey Price is healthy, and the Canadiens showed early in the game that they have the ability to play with the Golden Knights in stretches, but they made far too many mistakes. And the Golden Knights, as Brian Blessing talked about earlier, ran a couple of great set plays off faceoffs, and Montreal has very little margin for error. But Carey Price in goal gives you margin for error. The Golden Knights just have to take care of their business, because if you open the door a little bit for Montreal, you give them some momentum going home. When you have to make that long trip up to Montreal and go into that bubble, you start to get more into that playoff crapshoot that we know hockey really is.
Aside from what Price can do, and we know goalies, especially top goalies, can take over series, who else do you see on the Canadians that, fear is a strong word, but you look at them and you're like, that dude's dangerous?
Well, I think the Golden Knights know well what Tyler Toffoli can do because they saw it last year in the bubble. Tyler Toffoli is a top-flight goal scorer, just didn't play as much this year because of injury, and I think the Golden Knights can look right down to their first ever draft pick with Nick Suzuki and say, this is a guy who can put the puck in the net. And then your cousin, Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield looked really good in getting that goal for Montreal. He has added a dimension to that offense that they didn't have previously. That team has 2 very good top lines. They're just not as deep as the Golden Knights. Third line is where you really start to see the disparity kick in, especially with Alex Tuck on that line and Janmark playing at a high level the way that he has. So there are guys that scare you. It's just that individually they scare you as opposed to the collective the Golden Knights throw at you.
I feel like Brendan Gallagher, who seems like the everyman, because I'm not sure he's 5'9". He appears to be a guy who could be a giant pain in the ass to Fleury.
Well, if we take anything from the less than 5'9" star that the Golden Knights have in Jonathan Marchessault, who I think when they write his tombstone years from now, it will say Johnny Pain in the Ass Marchessault. Maybe that's the roadmap.
Yes. Yes. I love this series. I want to see what Montreal can do. Don't want to judge it on one game. Certainly don't, or you didn't want to judge the last series on one game, right? Because a lot of people made that mistake in saying the Avs were going to freaking roll VGK. Things can change quickly. It all starts tonight. We'll see if the Knights can come out stronger, get off to a better start, and can be as dominating as they were, especially on defense throughout Game 2. It's over at the Fortress, coming up on Fox Sports Las Vegas, 1340 and 98.9 FM. We'll come back in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk to one of the media members from Montreal and get the breakdown of the Canadian side and also an update. Actually, should I just read? Should I give you the update?
You should.
Should we try
right now.
some French again?
Right now.
Was my French pretty good in the 4 o'clock hour?
Sure. Yeah, if you feel that way. Okay.
No, I was asking. I went to break. I
Oui?
spoke a little French.
Oui?
Okay. That's I like that. Let's see. Des membres de la famille de Jeff Petrie sont venus le voir jour ce soir. I think it's ce soir. We emphasize sur leur anyway. Actually, a tweet was out. Members of Jeff Petrie's family came to watch him play tonight. Yes, emphasis on the word play. Wouldn't that help the Canadians?
It's the Big 5 at 5, brought to you by Battle-Born Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured, call Justin Watkins at Battle-Born Injury Lawyers, 570-9000.
More lawyers.